butterflies until twice white. They meet, they mate. Basho.
What?
Well, I feel like he's talking about just the dance that two butterflies make in mating season. What do you call that? Mating season for butterflies?
They don't mate.
What do you mean they don't mate? Of course they do.
I don't think butterflies mate.
How do you make more butterflies?
The females just produce. Actually,
No.
aren't they all females?
No. What?
Yeah, because a butterfly doesn't produce a butterfly.
They make what are they called? Caterpillars.
Caterpillar.
Yeah. Yeah. Through
Do they
eggs.
make the caterpillar though? I don't even know.
Yeah, man.
That's why I was saying thinking, actually not saying, that twice white. I was curious if that actually meant something. Because don't they die if they mate? Isn't that what it is? Because butterflies don't live long. Because their wings are so delicate. Isn't that what
I think
that means?
no.
Because they have that there's that pollen or something. I don't know what it's called, but it's on their wings. So when that comes off, they can't fly anymore. And I think that's what that.
No, I
twice white
think
is
we're
related
guessing.
to.
I think that's a big wild guess.
Because butterflies are crazy.
Let's ask Google. Hey Google, do butterflies mate?
On the website kidsbutterfly.org, they say, how do butterflies mate? Male butterflies find females by sight and use chemicals called pheromones at close range. If the female accepts the male, they couple end to end and may go on a short courtship flight. To find out more, look for the link in your Google Chrome.
And turn it up if you want. Hey Google, turn it up to 75%. Hey Google, turn it up to 75%. One more time?
No.
Oh.
No.
So Greg, it turns out that they mate.
Huh. Okay.
See? So ballet in the air, which means that they do a ritualistic dance. Twin butterflies, they look the same. They're both white. Well, until twice white, that would mean that they're covered in their own.
That's why I was thinking that the twice white has something to do with that
With the powder they have,
powder stuff they have on their wings.
perhaps they meet, they mate, or maybe they're just flushed.
The twice
like-
white could just mean that they are the same until they
Or they're- yeah.
until they're compatible.
Well, that's a very interesting way to start the Sunday podcast. Welcome, everyone.
Good morning, everyone.
My name is Marco.
And Greg here.
Today we're having a little bit of a bulletproof coffee. Greg's never tried it, so I made him one. What do you think? What do you think so
Is
far?
this supposed to be one of those stupid 600,000 milligrams of caffeine coffee? Like
No.
that Black Death coffee or whatever it's called? You know what I'm saying?
No, bulletproof coffee is just basically when you add some sort of oil, like MCT oil or butter.
Oliver. My
So,
son's
dude-
over there singing a song. Shh, please. So, it's a what?
It's basically just regular coffee, black coffee. You could add butter. I add grass-fed butter, or you could add MCT oil, and it just it tastes really good, man. It's supposed to be good for you.
Oh, okay, so it's not one of those, I don't know what they call them, like death coffees or
No.
something.
No, it's just bulletproof coffee. It's just
It's just
like a way of making coffee. In fact, they say that eating some sort of fat in the morning promotes brain function. So that's why I made it.
It's supposed to help with your,
No.
because your blood doesn't flow the same after a deep sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Like it flows through your body differently. And that's one of the things that I read is that you should eat a big green fatty salad. So use like have a lot of different types of like lettuces and vegetables with like a fat, like an olive oil or something like that, because it helps your blood flow and gets all the nutrition through your body early in the morning.
And by the way,
I've
guys,
read
this
that.
is just bro science.
No, it's not true. No, I read a whole thing on this, and I thought it was super weird. I tried it for a while, and I was just like, hey, I can't eat lettuce in the morning anymore.
What do you
I
mean?
just don't like lettuce.
Why? Just flush your system or what?
Oh, it's just so boring.
Oh, okay. You just ate too much of it.
Yeah. It's like back when we first started with nutrition and stuff, and you were doing the super high protein, high fat.
Uh-huh.
And I tried it, and I had to make like olive oil soup because there were no foods out there I would eat. It was so bad, dude. I did it for 3 days. I was like, nope, done.
Dude, one time I had, my girlfriend then, my wife now, I had her make me a tuna and oil smoothie because I had to meet my macros. Dude, like halfway drinking that thing, I wanted to die. You know, I actually finished it. I don't know how I finished it, but
Why
it was
didn't you just like things like that? I never understood. Like there's what is it? The greens you used to drink.
Yep.
That stuff was disgusting, and the ingredients were the way to drink it was put like 16 ounces of water and then a scoop of it in. Or I just took the stuff with like a little shot of water and then just drank the 16 ounces of water on its own, just because the taste is so bad. I didn't want to drink 16 ounces of it, so I just like anytime something was bad, I would just shoot it. Like for a while, I was just taking spinach and cooking it and squishing it down into like one ball and just swallowing it like a whole, dude. I did not want to eat like a whole salad.
Oh my gosh, Greg.
Because it still ate the same amount. It just was cooked down and you could eat it in one bite.
Come on, dude.
Anything like that I could get around, I did.
It's like, what's the point of eating it then?
Because it's something that I wouldn't normally eat that wasn't nasty enough for me to throw up, but gave me the extra like vitamins and minerals that I wouldn't have had in the first place. So it's like all I would eat before was green beans, so throwing in the spinach helped.
Dude, for a while there, you weren't eating any fiber. I remember that.
I don't normally eat fiber.
Dude. So actually, I had to check myself this past month, man. I've just been all over the place with diet. It hasn't been the best, you know. I've been kind of just messing up.
I've just been eating one big meal. It's usually 2 big turkey sandwiches, just turkey, cheese, and a couple pieces of pepperoni. That's it. I don't know. I haven't been that hungry this month.
You haven't been hungry this month?
Yeah, I really haven't been. Like, I'll eat one giant meal and that's it. Like, I haven't even eaten today. Yesterday, I had like maybe 2 enchiladas and 2 like, you know, like little square pizzas, like they're literally just like this big. Let's say I maybe had 1 slice of pizza. The equivalent of 1 slice of pizza
they're like
and 2 enchiladas.
They're called margarita pizzas?
Yeah, kind of like, no, not a whole one. But yeah, kind of like a flatbread.
Okay.
But
is it like an appetizer?
It's equivalent of 1 slice of pizza. So 1 slice of pizza and 2 enchiladas all day. And that's,
dude,
like,
what the
that's
heck?
nothing. I eat that in like 2 seconds at a dinner.
That's basically nothing. Yeah, man. Well, this is your birthday week, dude. You excited? You're turning 30. This is your 30, right?
Yeah.
Damn.
Not excited. I'm not excited.
Are you still coming out Saturday night?
Highly doubt it.
You highly doubt it.
Yeah.
Do you think what are you gonna be doing? Settling in
I'm moving.
that night?
I don't know. Like if we're gonna do a podcast on Saturday, I might do a couple trips on Saturday. 'Cause I'm moving into a new place, so I have everything packed. I guess I just have to move it, but I've just not sure how long it's gonna take because a
Well,
lot of
it's
the
late.
stuff, like when we packed it, because where I'm at now, we're packing the whole house, and they have painters there, and things are packed and put away, but some of everyone else's things are also packed. So like my stuff could be on the inside of all the other packed items. So it's gonna be. I think it's gonna take longer to find my things than to move my things.
Well, it's late, and you're closer. If let's say that you end the day there, I think it's close from there. You know, and yeah, I think it'll be good. Are you buying anything in particular?
No,
No, nothing.
nope. I picked my son up, but that's about it.
Hmm.
Have him through the middle of the day.
So last week we left off at the question of how do you bring meaning into your life, and I thought it was a big, I think it's a big question. There's a lot of answers to that. So I think we can even start talking about that now. There's a lot to unpack. So now that you're 30, now that you thought about that, all week, you're 30, you're moving to a new place with your son, right? It's the first time that you guys are moving out on your own together. Wouldn't you say that this whole new endeavor has brought new meaning to your life? Like now you have a set of responsibilities with almost no plan B, no safety net,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so it's now there's no excuses. You just have to put in the work. You have to do whatever you have to do now.
yep. And that's one of the things that I've been trying to work out with time management, and it's funny because it brings me back to when I knew someone who was kind of in the same boat. It's actually it was worse in the sense than I have it. They were a single parent, and they didn't have the option of like the other parent taking the kids part-time. They had the kids all the time, and they're in the same financial realm as me, so there's no way they're getting childcare on the amount of money they make. And I thought it was just easy, like get to work and make your money and go home and take care of what you got to take care of, but you got to be able to get to work first. And I kind of feel bad for that person now, like thinking about it all, because it's easy now just to say, oh, just get to work and make money. Like the money you make is what you use.
Yeah, man. Well, dude, since that day, I was really just thinking about that question, and something big that I remember growing up as a kid was my mom having to take care of 7 kids by herself. So when I was thinking about about that question, I was thinking about her and how she was able to, how she was able to overcome that big obstacle, raising 7 kids by herself. It's insane. And I was thinking, I'm like, well, her purpose was her 7 kids, of why she had to do everything that she had to do. Work 2 jobs, come home until 11 o'clock at night. My mom never even learned how to drive. So it just baffles me now that our generation, and me included, we just we kind of take everything that we have for granted. And then not only that, but we complain about the little things that we have to do.
Like there's this guy that I watch on YouTube, and he's a programmer, and he, in a sense, it's what you call self-taught, even though you take like online courses and stuff. It's that you're not being taught directly from others. And so he got like a low end paying job through programming, which is slightly better than working a minimum wage job. And he just learned on his own. He didn't even have his own laptop. He lived in a house that had one of those, what they call like a spare office. So it's like the size of a closet almost. He lived in there. He didn't have his own laptop. He borrowed his friend's laptop when he wasn't working, and went to a McDonald's to learn how to program to get the job. And then in that job, he didn't really learn much. It was more or less just using the same thing over and over. So he had to continue to learn on his own. And now he works for Entrepreneur magazine,
Wow.
and he does their websites.
You know, Entrepreneur
that's-
magazine's down on
the one
405, right?
He's at.
Oh, wow, cool.
And he posted a video the other day about him trying to get his friends and family, who he could see are struggling as well, to learn. He was saying that he was going to give up his weekends to help them learn. He would teach them, and he just realized that they didn't want to do it. They didn't want to put in any time to get further. And he said that it made him sad that no one wanted to get themselves out of their position. And I see that a lot. Like last night I was doing some of the programming, and I started realizing I was dozing off. So I said, I'm going to stop doing it so that when I'm actually doing it, I'll learn, not that I'm dozing off during all these things and skipping.
Mm-hmm.
So then I turned on a movie, and I stayed up for another 2 hours. And it's I don't know how it's easy enough to stay up for the movie, but I can't stay up to watch these other videos to learn. So sometimes you just get beat down, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's interesting that you mentioned that, because I feel that way when I pick up a book and start reading, and it's when you know what I feel like it is. I think that certain entertainment, and particularly devices, they hit the right endorphins in your brain that make you feel a certain way.
Yeah.
And when you pick up a book, you don't feel that way. So what I've realized that I need to do is disconnect. I need to disconnect from everything so that I can find pleasure in the things that are outside of my everyday life. So, for instance, if, I'm going to work, I come back, I have to take care of this puppy, that's within my daily life. But outside of that would be like reading a book. So I need to replace the devices with things like a book, or even just working on my business, maybe improving the business, and or doing something else, improving myself. I can do that, and eventually that'll replace the response that my brain gave with the device. So it's something that I've been thinking about. It's not something that I've put into practice yet, because it's hard. It's hard to, override a bad habit that you've had since. I mean, how old were you when you had a phone? We were probably in high school.
Yeah.
I would say maybe freshman,
I
sophomore
got
year.
one in middle school, but it was like a Nokia. So it was we weren't sitting on the Nokia all day playing Snake.
No,
We would play it here and there when we're waiting for something, but it wasn't
but
we
you
wanted to go
but you
do it.
texted, right? It was about texting, no?
At that time, no, I didn't talk to anyone really.
I think it wasn't. I think
It was just a call and be like, hey,
It was
pick me up.
the big game changer. I think was MySpace. You remember that?
Yeah.
when-
I don't think phones were that big of an issue until iPhone, the first iPhone with the touch
Or the
came out.
iPod, right?
I mean, maybe not even with the iPod, because the iPod
They had games. They had
not
games.
not like the first. It didn't have games until the iPhone came out, though. Like it may have had things like the snake and stuff like that, but it wasn't enough to draw people's attention for long periods of time. That was more like in the boredom stages. Like I don't even remember people like having their headphones in with their iPods and completely ignoring people. Like they would still like if someone would walk near them or anything, they'd pull the earphone out
Yeah,
and see what was going
they would
on.
acknowledge them.
Yeah, it wasn't used to ignore people.
But nowadays, it's to ignore people. Have you noticed
Yeah.
that? You have AirPods, and
And
So-
it's even worse now too with those because you never know when they're actually listening because people just leave them in, which makes sense. Like leave them in if you're gonna keep going back and forth between something.
Yeah.
Like even in the restaurant, people do that. And it's like they'll start talking to me. They'll place an order. I'll be talking to them for like 3 minutes, and then I'll stop talking to them for a second, and they'll start talking. But they're talking to the headphones. There's no way for me to have known.
dude, I was watching live PD on YouTube the other day, and one of the officers had an AirPod in.
Yeah.
I was like, "What?" I'm like, "Come on, dude! Like, what's going on? Like, if you're an officer and you're like ensuring that the law is followed, how do you have AirPods in?"
You can have the headphones in as long as it's not on your. It's only in one ear and not on your driver ear. So like, not on the left side.
Yeah.
I believe is what it was.
But wouldn't you say? I mean, forget about being unprofessional. I'm just you're an officer upholding the law with AirPods in. Like that's how infectious the devices are. And then now we even have smartwatches, where it's another way to still be connected.
To
Like-
tell you the truth, I don't see many people with those anymore.
The watches.
Yeah, I don't think it's the biggest of a hit. Like it's nice for the times that you're not supposed to have your phone out to check something super quickly.
Yeah, you get a text or something.
Yeah,
You see who's calling?
and yeah, you're not trying to be rude, but you see it real quick, and it's almost like the pager of our time. Like you don't have to
I
do
had a
something
pager.
right now. It's like it's more or less just notifying you, and that's it. Like I had 3 different ones, and I have one that works perfectly fine. I just don't use it. It's just not. I don't think it's that
You know
useful.
what, dude? Since I actually had a pager when I was young, but it was only I only had it for like a year or so. It wasn't, the next thing was like a phone. I got like a flip phone or something. But you know what I'm realizing now? Since that day, there was something weird about technology, about seeing wires and seeing like a Game Boy or seeing these devices that for whatever reason, even though I didn't know how to operate certain things, I was already intrigued and my mind was going crazy for it. Like, do you remember getting your first iPod or Game Boy?
I remember the first Game Boy because it was.
Do you remember that? Like,
Yeah, my brothers and I, we had a share, and it's when Pokemon came out. So we got the Pokemon game and the Game Boy at the same time. So we all ended up going outside on the grass and sitting there, and it was 4 of us because one of our other friends came over, and he already had the Game Boy. So we had 2 Game Boys, and we would all take turns. So it's like he had it for an hour, I had it for an hour. So we like beat the game so quickly because it was just a constant. We were just constantly playing it, but it was great.
but you remember the feeling that you got?
Yeah,
So that feeling has now it's basically being written in our DNA. Like, do you realize that all the people that were growing up within the new technological revolution, as you would call it, and their kids now, they're almost always on their phone.
well, yeah, it's like the whole TikTok thing right now.
I still haven't checked it out. Is it even worth it? It's like the Snapchat,
not
right?
it's not for our. I mean,
It's like a Snapchat.
okay, the main thing is that the people who are on there are the people spending money. It's
What do you
all
mean?
the younger people.
What do you mean they're
Okay,
spending money?
so the people who spend money right now
Okay.
on frivolous things, on things that don't necessarily matter, things that are considered like privileges essentially. So
Okay.
they're all on that. So you got your younger kids, you have your kids who don't work, you have the people who are in college, and the people who have money to just throw out.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the people who are on there, and that's why it's so big, because it's a way to get money out of them. Because the older people aren't spending money. Older people have to pay
But how
bills
are
for the
people spending
houses
money on
and
it?
are giving money to their kids. To
But
go
how,
do
how are they spending money?
They're not spending money on there, but businesses are using it as their advertising platform.
Because it's popular.
Yeah.
So, but
So
what,
it's a bunch
what-
of young kids doing
what is it
copycat dances and like just doing stupid like meme things.
yeah, is it? Would you think that it's like a Vine video?
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing.
Hey, whatever happened to Vine? And what?
Snapchat took over. Snapchat was
No,
similar to
but
Vine.
But wasn't there a reason why Vine stopped? There was like
I
a
didn't really-
lawsuit or something.
I never really followed Vine. Whenever I saw Vine things, it was on YouTube.
YouTube. Yeah, yeah,
But I think it's pretty similar in the sense of what they do.
yeah.
Because it's like you take a small clip and you try to dance to the clip, and there's specific dances to specific songs, and like
Well, even YouTube, man. Back when it first began, nobody was really on it. It wasn't until people, like celebrities, started like streaming their, like comedy
Well, they
was a
did-
big one.
they didn't have it designed to be like an entertainment concept. They had it there for storage,
Yeah, right.
and it just so happened that they're like, okay, people are actually watching these, so then it just started.
It became
to turn into that.
then it became a business.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's really interesting. But even these microphones, even just by looking at them, it gives me like a wow factor, and it makes me more like interested in whatever this is. Like even the soundboard just looks cool. The mixer,
Yeah.
it just looks cool for whatever reason. I don't understand it. I hope the audio's better today. I did mess around with it a little bit, but just the side of it. No. So we both have our kids here today. So if you guys are wondering what all that noise is, they're just kids. But even this little girl, I mean, let's move away from technology and come back to the question of how do you bring meaning into your life. Even this puppy has given me a tremendous amount of meaning, because now it's my work, my work is basically me solo, running around on my own. Are we still? Yeah, we're still on it. And I spent a lot of time by myself, and I wasn't aware, but having her around, it gave me a not only a companion, but like I don't know, like it just improved the quality of my work. Because I can take her to the office, I can work from here, I can take her to the properties, go check up the properties, whilst walking her or whatever. And not only that, but the tenants around me, they respond to me differently now, just because they're there. She's there. She's like a icebreaker.
Yeah.
If I'm there to collect rent, and they see her, they're not gonna be mad at me anymore. So, yeah, she's been giving me a lot of meaning lately.
I need to find something that I can do that.
Dude.
I can't just take on the work with me, walk up to a table like, hey, what would you like to eat today?
I thought you.
And then he's like, hey, I want chicken nuggets.
I thought you meant that you were looking for something to give you meaning. I was like, bro.
No.
Yeah, I mean, dude, there's a lot of things out there. I actually had a work friend. We met just the other day. We were talking about that she's looking for something that gives her freedom. And I was telling her, well, I do property management. If I had kids right now, I could take them to school. I can go to their school meetings. I can go to their recitals. I can take them to whatever practice. I have that freedom. And the thing is that I looked around, man, and most people just have a job. They don't have and you know what? Making a business gives you that freedom. Maybe not up front, but long term, you will have that freedom. If you put in the work for 5-10 years, though you get the business to be self-sustained and it's sustainable, and it can pay your bills, you will also have the freedom. But it's hard, man. It's really hard. And so most people are just content having a job, 9 to 5. It's, set schedule. They can call out of work if in an emergency. And yeah, man, why don't you think about that? I mean, we talked about that in the past.
Well, starting something, sure, but you gotta have
This is something.
the skill and knowledge. Yeah.
This is something. It can eventually turn into that. Although right now I'm just using it as a platform to talk to people. And so maybe this will become something in the future. Who knows? Let's hope. Subscribe.
Like now.
We need listeners. Yeah. But what else are you looking for?
Just essentially that constant, like, I don't care about working a lot, but being able to control when you work. Like, I find with working 9 hours today, as long as, let's say today's Monday, as long as I
Right.
can drop them off at school,
Mhm.
let's say go work for 4.5 hours,
Mm-hmm.
pick them up from school, and go back and work for another 4.5 hours. You don't find, like, there's no places that are like, oh yeah, sure. Like, there's not enough work out there that's like
Well, independent contracting.
Yeah.
Although there's a new law that affects that. So if, for instance, there's a law, I forget what I don't know if it's law AB 1482.
It's still in the works too. And a lot of people are throwing money at it. So
Yeah, but only people who enjoy having a job are gonna. They're the only people that are gonna get something out of it. People who want to stay as independent contractors, it's actually gonna affect them in a negative way, because they're gonna
for
lose
ones
that.
who actually get paid well, yeah. This
Well,
is
they're
all
gonna lose-
about
they're
it's
gonna
all
lose
about
the
the
freedom.
Uber, Lyft, and those kind of contractors who aren't actually independent contractors.
Yeah,
Like, there's a huge difference between an independent contractor who can set rules and an Uber driver who has to just accept the rules as they are. Like, there's no negotiating.
yes, but that's
So that is
that's
an
just
employee.
but that's just but that's just one. That's just one company. What about the people who, like myself? I'm an independent contractor.
Yeah,
I
so
technically
that's
work for myself, right?
because
But
you're
it's-
able to negotiate, and that's
Right.
the thing. And now they lump it all together. They're
So,
not willing
right.
to separate it.
So because they're lumping it together, a lot of people are going to be affected in a negative way.
Yeah, but a lot of people are throwing money at it. Like, that's why you don't hear it talked about anymore. I don't
Yeah.
think it's gonna happen, or
No.
they're going to adjust it to where it only affects the low end of it.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back to the question. How do you bring meaning into your life?
The way you bring meaning to your life is by bringing meaning to others. Just like you said, with the dog or with my son. Because without, like, in those two circumstances, they both need someone to bring them food. They both need someone to clean up. They both need someone to take them somewhere. Like,
so it's
go get shot.
Getting purpose. It's purpose.
Yeah.
And with the goal in mind, right?
Yeah.
It's not just having a kid; it's raising him well.
Yeah.
Right. It's giving him a bright future.
It's like those little kids. You're like, I want a baby, and then when they go out to dinner and a baby's screaming, they're like, "That's so loud." What's the baby gonna do the whole time when you have it?
Yeah, it's part of it. Yeah, and with those things come a certain responsibility and certain things that you need to affect. You need to basically accept, right?
And I guess that's what the electronics and stuff is taking away, is the actual seeing of that responsibility. Like, being able to, let's say you have 10 employees and you've never actually met them. Like, it's all like computer stuff that, like, one person lives in New York, someone lives in LA, you live in Wisconsin, and the other people live in, like, Europe. You've never actually met them, but they're producing, like, work for you that's making, that you guys are all making money. Like, it wouldn't be as big of a deal to, like, fire all these people, because you don't actually, like, you don't have that responsibility.
There's a disconnect.
Like, there's the huge disconnect.
There's a disconnect, right?
If you go to work every day and you see someone, and then you're like, oh, I gotta get rid of that person.
Yeah. There's a certain disconnect that technology can't fill, which is that human connection. It's hard for me to explain, but I know exactly what you're referring to. What do you think about? What do you think about giving? Well, okay. So let me backtrack a little bit. My doctor, he found a way of serving people, which is through his practice. But that's not the only thing he does. In fact, he's been doing this practice for 45 years. And one thing that he does is, from his consultation money that he gets from his patients, he founded a library in New York. And why? Because to him, learning is the most important thing in the world. And his way of contributing to humanity is by, one, serving people by helping them. And number two is giving them a way to continue learning. And that's his purpose. And that's what gave his life meaning. And he's 93 years old, which is crazy.
Wait, who?
My doctor.
Oh, your doctor? I thought you said your boss. I was like, what the heck?
Well, okay. Yeah. So that's my doctor. He's 93 years old. He founded a library in Brooklyn. Okay. They named the library after him. There's a little hall where speakers come in and give lectures. And he's here, and the library's in Brooklyn. But how does he donate all his money so that other people can learn? Imagine, you're 93, you're on your last lap, as he says to me, I'm on my last lap. This is the only thing I do. The money you live here has nothing to do with me. I've donated all. It's crazy. That's crazy. Well, I've realized that the most influential people in my life do that for others. For instance, my boss, he's turning 50 this year. Yes, he's got a really successful business. I'm sure his kids and their kids will never have to work ever. Yet he chooses to do his business in a certain way where most people that he comes in contact with get something out of it. So, for instance, if if you wanted to go see Southeast Asia, he'll create a wonderful experience for you, and he'll put you in the coolest hotels if that's what you're into. If you're interested in history, he'll give you a guided tour with a local expert, with a local historian. If you're interested in photography, he'll put you, like, your guide will be an expert photographer that will actually show you how to shoot photographs. If you're into culture and whatever, there's, everything, dude. He'll immerse you in the culture. That's his way of sharing Southeast Asia with travelers. And what do they get in return is they get an experience that they'll never be able to get here in America, especially families with kids who grow up here. They will never, if they stay here all their life, they'll never understand what a third world country looks like and what other kids have to go through. So they grow up, ungrateful, spoiled. And so he'll basically put things together to change your perspective about the world and life. So if, let's say that you want to teach your kid gratitude, well, he'll take you to an orphanage. Well, they'll give you a tour, and one of the options is to donate to the orphanage, or he'll send you to a needy village in Cambodia where you can donate a cow, which will feed many people or provide milk, or you can donate a water well, which you'll be providing a village with drinkable water, or a sampan boat where in the fishing markets, that's how you make a living. So that's how he brings meaning to travelers. Now, in the country, as I mentioned right now, he does a lot of philanthropy, but he also has a salon that's dedicated to art, and where he brings like local artists to do exposés. And we're actually we're talking about that. He's thinking of bringing that here, doing something like that here. So all the most successful people that I know end up doing that. And if they don't, they're really unhappy. If they're not giving back to a community in a certain way, they're really unhappy, or there's someone that I wouldn't want to associate with. They just have a different way. I don't know about you, man, but I feel like, have you ever come into contact with any like sort of politician?
You know what? That's actually funny, because I was serving these people the other day, and I talked to the guy's wife plenty of times. I've never seen the guy before, and they came in, they sat at the bar, and we were talking just because I've seen the lady before, and I served them. Everything was fine. They said, "See you later." They come in quite often, and like 10 minutes later, the other worker comes in. He's like, "Oh, that guy was the mayor of the city, right?" I was like, "That guy was the mayor? What?" He's not the current mayor. He used to be.
He was a mayor.
Yeah. I was like, "Huh, that's interesting." But outside of that, it's only been like people have been in front. Like I used to go to like concerts in the park and stuff, and the mayor would like stand on the stage, but like there was no interaction with them. And
so, what was your first impression from the guy?
I mean, he was an older gentleman, and he had the tube that gave oxygen. So like,
oh geez, okay.
At first, I was like, all right, I'll help this guy out, like, because.
What do you say?
Sorry, there's another person too. It's not a politician, but this guy, he just like I've known the guy for a while, but like I never knew what the person did. Turns out the guy is a lawyer, and I was like, oh really? like it's so weird because sometimes people just don't seem to be very like knowledgeable about things, and then they have like professions. Like that kills me sometimes. Like I see people do some like of the stupidest things, but like they got money. It's like what? Like I went to BJ's the other night.
Uh-huh.
And I was sitting there. And there was this table of I want to say like 8 people,
Okay.
and they're eating. And this BJ's was pretty packed, so the tables were really close. And then there was just like a small walkway. So the people from the table, they all stand up from the table and stand in the walkway for 30 minutes just talking. It's like you should just stayed at your table and
At the
sat there.
table?
You can tell they all had money. Like they're all in like super nice suits, all dressed up, and
Maybe it was like a work party or something?
yeah, something like that. But then they just stood there and blocked, and then looked at people who like walked up to try to walk through, like the servers, and they just like look at them and don't move. It's just like, how are you so stupid? So you can't move, get out the way, or go talk outside. But like, you definitely look successful. Like, I don't get it.
They're just good at with money, I guess.
Yeah.
Well-
it may just be the concept of oblivious to everything outside of the goal.
That could be some.
See what I
Yeah, that
mean?
could be a part of it.
Like
But
they
just
were
some.
talking about something serious, and they didn't care what else was going around them.
Well, look, man. I see that everywhere. So if you think about doctors, you know, doctors are crazy smart. Yet, statistically speaking, you see that doctors are almost the most unhealthy people in the world. I would say most doctors. I wouldn't say all of them.
Because of stress.
Well, stress. They have bad eating habits, and they're smokers. How are doctors? And
No, I don't see many doctors smoking, but like almost every nurse smokes.
that
I actually
too,
think
man.
that nurses are crazy. Like nurses, I don't know what it is, but nurses are like I don't know about the guys. I haven't really experienced many guy nurses, but like, man, dude, the girl nurses are like the party girls who go out and go crazy, like those obnoxiously loud people. But like when they're working, they're not necessarily that way. They're just like they're asking you the questions that you need to be asked, those kind of things. But like outside of work, nurses are crazy.
So you've interacted with some?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's not like they lose like all their professional.
Do you
side.
think that? So let's. This is my theory. There are crazy to that they need to make up for it. Well, that they use nursing to make up for it, basically. That they're just so crazy. They have to go and help other people because they're that crazy. You know what I mean? It's like a way to justify their craziness. What do you think about that?
Maybe, but I don't know.
Jeez, this.
Medical field takes something from you, I guess.
Yeah, imagine like seeing people just being messed up every day. I mean, that has to do something to your psyche, no?
Yeah. Because I mean, it's the same in the sense of like when you see something consistent, like let's say like how my son doesn't like dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are seeing eye dogs that won't come up to you, that won't do anything, that won't bark, will barely look at you, and is fine with you petting it. But he'll see it the same way as if a wolf is standing in front of him trying to bite his head off.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I don't know how I was connecting that back. But it's
Perception?
like, yeah, it's a perception of when you can consistently see things that.
You mean like you're desensitized? Like for instance,
no,
like
I don't
people.
think they ever get desensitized. I think it's
what about
easier
people-
to deal with it in the moment.
What about people in morgues? They're definitely desensitized to death. If they see it as natural.
They're
Natural occurring.
desensitized to the concept of seeing the dead bodies, but it still is affecting their way around it. So like, let's say someone they know dies, they're not affected by the dead body or seeing the dead
But they're
body.
still affected by losing someone.
Or maybe not even that. Because it's just like, yeah, this happens every day.
But even then, man, like even those people with in morgues, you're working at a funeral. The way that you get meaning from your life is through, preparing the body in a certain way. When if it's an open casket, that when people see them, they're presentable. They still seem human. It's not just like a dead thing. Imagine, like that's what they're doing for the world. Like I don't know if I could do that. And we know we need those people. Or what about janitors that have to go pick up all the crap in restrooms?
Yeah.
Like that is how they. I'm not gonna say all of them, because I was a janitor one time, dude, for about must have been like a year.
I actually thought about it, like, and I actually almost would not even have a problem being a janitor. I feel like I don't know what it was. I thought one day I was like, why don't I become a janitor? I clean when no one's around. I don't have to deal with anyone, and I can get my work done efficiently. And there's something to be seen about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know.
And then your way of giving back essentially is by giving them a clean space.
Yeah.
No.
It was a weird thought. I don't know why I've ever thought about that, but it's something that I've always had in the back of my head. Like, it's easy to like straighten up someone else's mess than your own mess. It's easier to see the faults in others than it is in yourself.
Isn't that crazy?
And I feel
man?
like it's something that I think it's something that I'm good at for others rather than myself. Like it's easier for me to give some sort of advice or some sort of way to get around a solution than giving one to myself.
Because we're all like that.
Yeah.
We can never, most people can't take their own advice.
Well, it's because people don't understand too that you have specific options at times. So it's like if I give you the option to pick up one book on the table, you have so many options. Let's say you have 3 books on the table.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to freak out about which book to pick up. You just have to pick one up. Those are your choices. That's it. Like there's nothing past that.
In the moment, I think it's what you're referring to is
like it makes
analysis paralysis. It's when you have so many options, you don't know which one to pick.
Yeah.
And I feel like our generation suffers from that. Like, just generally speaking, we have so many options to do everything, whatever we want, that most people don't end up doing anything.
I'm actually stuck in that too, because it's one of the things that I'm doing with my money is I constantly recreate scenarios of how much money I can make a month on my worst, my best, and everything in between. Consistently, if you looked at my calculator right now, I could probably explain to you what every single one of those calculations means and why I did it. Like my calculator saves past like, transactions, and I keep doing it to make sure that I'm financially sound.
That's not bad.
In a bad and a good.
Well, I don't see it's a bad way.
Session like I'll do the same one over and over. Like I can guarantee work 5 days one week and 3 days the next, and I'll consistently calculate that with expenses that I would do with what my normal expenses like I'm going to have every month. And then say I do it again with when I buy a lot of groceries or not a lot of groceries, or I want to test to be like, hey, can I make it off of $75 a month for food rather than the $300 I've allotted? Okay, now that I'm allotting $75 and I see that I can actually make it with that amount of groceries, let's now recalculate to see how many days I don't have to work so that I can have that in the back of my head, like, this month, I can only work 3 days each week. This is what I have to do. And it's like, it's weird in my head. Like, I feel almost like I could be a financial advisor based off of people's incomes.
Why don't you do that?
Because there's not really, like, people don't want to just give you their income and have no schooling in it. Like if I was
Bro,
told,
okay.
if
Hey,
if you
one
came
second,
to
one
me
second.
and said I make $1,000 a month, these are my expenses, this is how much money I have, and this is what I would like to do, I could break it all down and tell you, like, if you work another 2 hours to make this much money, you can do this.
Greg,
this.
I
Like,
took you to a meeting of that World Financial Group.
uh-huh.
That's basically what you do.
No, yeah, but that's different.
How
The
is that
second I walked
different?
in, I
Greg,
was like,
okay.
scam.
Yeah, because it just depends how you look at it. There's offices that, like Luis Lopez, who was on the podcast before, he's in WFG. He's not about recruiting and making money off people. He's about educating people financially. That you can join his team and you can serve that purpose. You know, there's many ways to do it. It's basically creating your own business in a way. It is your own business. Yeah, you can recruit if you want to mentor people. You don't have to. You can just go out there and show people how to be financially sound.
Yeah,
That's an option.
Time too, financially sound doesn't necessarily mean make a lot of money. I mean, in the long term, you want to save a lot of money, so for like retirement and all of that. But to like I see people who work minimum wage jobs, and I can still calculate it out to where they would be fine, as long as they're single. So like everything changes.
As long as they're single.
Everything changes. So like I could get by on a minimum wage job, but you have to work full time. There's no way to do part time. So it's things like that. Like I even calculate too, if I were to get another job, with being paid less, with how many more hours I have to work, what days. I even do it like that too. It's like a stupid obsession, because like in the service industry, different days you'll make different amounts.
Yeah.
So I'll do the same thing. I use my calculator every day, multiple times.
So
a day. It's
what if
crazy.
you were able to get out of that and have like maybe like a salary job where you don't have to worry about that?
Yeah.
Would that change?
Yeah.
Would you be okay with that? Is that something that you would rather have?
Yeah. If I can find something that works with what I have. But that's the issue. Like you don't find flexible people. Like most businesses are like, you need to complete this in your first hour. Like especially a restaurant. Like you got to be there at the start to count the money in the morning. You have to.
You want me to hire you?
Let's go. Shoot.
You gotta.
But no, it's stuff like that. Like it's I don't have an issue working. Like how you said, you take your dog and go work. Like there's no issue with that. But like there are so many jobs out there that's like you can't just walk up to a table and be like, hey, my name is Greg and this is my son. What would you like to eat today?
Hey, but what about having your own restaurant? Like you've always seemed to want to have your own restaurant. We were even talking about you having a food truck at once. Imagine that. Let's say that he's literally just giving people napkins.
But see, you're not even allowed to do that, is the point.
You can't, huh?
No.
Well, I mean, he's going to grow up.
Well, that's the thing.
He can start working at 16.
I've looked at different stages of my life, because there's different stages of kids' life too.
Yeah.
There's the age, especially the age he's in, it is 100% reliable on the parent. Like
Right.
you got to make sure to be there every moment that they're awake, so that they don't run into the street or things like that.
Mhm.
At a certain age, they get old enough to where they're going to be at school just as long as you're going to be at work. So like in another year, I'll be able to find easier childcare, because he
Yeah.
can go to like boys and girls clubs
Mhm.
or things like that, and then that opens up a lot more work availability.
Yeah.
And then there's the age, I don't know, what is it, like 12, where they're old enough to start walking home from school if you live close enough,
Mhm.
or they're old enough to, let's say I can go and drop him off at school at 8 in the morning. He gets off at 3, but I don't get out of work until 4. He can walk home from school and be home by himself for an hour. Like you get different stages of life that can help improve, but I don't want to wait that long.
But it's part of the process.
I'm not. That's why I keep trying. The programming stuff that I'm doing right now has actually helped me understand more of the design aspects, which is actually really interesting because this person's explaining so much better than that last course. Remember, I was telling you that I feel like they're not explaining it in a way I can understand.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm getting through things.
Mm-hmm.
This guy's explaining things in ways that I can understand.
So what is that way? What is the way that you're
He's
learning?
he's explaining little things that people don't think matter. So in programming, there's a thing called a class, which is a way to give something a name to connect it to each other.
okay?
So you put in a class of dog,
Mm-hmm.
and then in the other side of it, where you design what that class dog is going to look like, you connect it with dog, and you put in your information what it's going to do. So now there's a new program that allows you to do all that, but you don't have to write the code out. So something that would take you 5 to 10 minutes to do is already done, but now it's abbreviated and you have to understand it.
Okay.
So now dog is just D124.
Mm-hmm.
And someone else would just be like, oh, this is how you connected D124. But
Okay.
he explains what D1 and 2 and 4 mean and how you can adjust it to different like
They could be
looks
like
and
a
things
different
that.
type
Yeah.
of dog.
There's more explanation, not just this is what it does.
Right.
Just do this and you got it. Like there's
Yeah.
the explanation of why.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And it's so much more useful. But
Why don't you give them a plug? Who is it? What's the
it's
class
named-
called?
It's on Udemy. It's the complete web developer course. And his
Did it
name
cost
is
anything?
Colt. I can't remember his last name. Colt. A lot of people. This is a very used course. There's like 15,000 reviews on it. It's like 4.5 stars. So with like that many reviews on it, 4.5, it's definitely good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's on Udemy. Udemy does
Do a lot of
different-
stuff, huh?
Yeah, they do. They do.
They even, I think they have one even for podcasting.
Yeah, they have classes for everything, show you how to set stuff up. And they have sales all the time. So their courses go from anywhere from like $5 to like, I think the most expensive one that I actually saw was like $200 and something. But they go on sale all the time. So it's like the realistic price you're paying is probably like $5 to $30.
Hmm.
And a lot of them are good. A lot of them are more or less just to get you started in it. And if you want to go further, like that's on you. So most people just like learn the basics.
It's like
And then
you
stop.
take the 101, and then
yeah.
if you want to continue, then if you want to get like a master class, then it would cost more
No,
money.
because like I don't think you can really find master classes out there. Like that's why like master's programs, like
Mhm.
actual like getting your master's degree, you actually have to do something. You have to go out and either like whatever field you're
Put
in,
it into
like you
practice.
you actually have to do it. And people in their masters, they start discovering things. They're forced to do something that they don't know. They have to research, they have to do all that. And that's when you become a master, is because you actually went out and did something.
Yeah, it's not just theoretical. You're actually
Yeah.
putting it into practice.
Yeah, and so that's where I hope this is putting me at the end of it, because I'm like 20 hours of video in, which is a lot more than 20 hours worth of just like sitting there and doing things.
Yeah, there's a lot of information.
Yeah, there's a lot of pausing, there's a lot of typing
Mhm.
out, there's a lot of rewind to actually understand what's being said. And I think I'm like 1/4 of the way through it. And at the end of this, it's from where I'm at right now, it's actually already improved what I have learned through the other courses. And this stuff is more put on top of what I learned than just relearning what I already know.
Hmm.
So it's faster ways of getting things done and more precise ways that others will be able to work on it too. So it's giving me more of a like a team could work on this project, because now I understand what other programmers understand. So it's easy to wrap it together. And it's cool too, because a lot of the things I've seen before, and there's no way anyone could really like pull the things apart and like understand it without having to learn it the same way. Like there's no guessing. Like, no one's gonna be able to dissect it. It's interesting.
Jesus, I think she's teething. So I mean, it hurts. It hurts when she's fighting. Forgot to bring her up a toy. Yeah, man. So what's your next step from here?
My next step is still learning.
No, yeah,
do you
but I mean, is it something that you're gonna continue? Is it something that you're gonna continue to do as a career, or is it something that you're just learning to see where it takes you, or what level of commitment do you have for it?
I think it'll give me a career, because even jumping into something like that in a base level will give you the connection, and you're working with people who have the experience that are doing bigger, better things.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to work directly, like right now in the restaurant, I work with the owner, but I don't know what the owner is doing.
Yeah.
I talk to the owner, but I don't talk about what the owner is doing within the business. So I'm not really learning the business of restaurant behind the scene. I'm only learning the front part.
But you're learning the operations of it.
So that's what I would hope from getting something like this, is because you would be directly working with the other people who have a higher skill. So you're getting a free schooling essentially.
Yeah.
You're getting a master's class essentially. So that's where I'm hoping to go. And we'll see. Sometimes it takes people longer to learn. Like that. Remember that one guy we ran into? We were just, I think we went and got like Panda Express, and we were going back
flame
to our
broiler.
car.
Flame broiler.
And the guy was walking to his car. We were walking, and then we just started talking. He's like, "Yeah, 5 years ago, I had nothing, and now this guy's like got like 5 like customized cars."
Yeah.
And it's just like, I kind of have a job. I kind of own some businesses. I'm not really sure. It's just like freaking talking to us about starting businesses and just learning things. It's 5 years. Like, if I, like thinking about it, I'm only 2 years into the 5 years.
Yeah.
So I'm only halfway, which means you're still the beginner. It's like the difference between, he's 3 right now.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 years ago, he could barely drink milk.
Right.
And now he's eating hamburgers and chicken nuggets and learning, and he's using a phone. So
a better way to explain it would be 3 years ago he was just lying down. Now he's walking. So he had to learn how to stand up, or crawl, stand up, then walk. And now he can run.
Yep.
And
we just
it just takes time, right?
Yeah.
It just takes time.
You just gotta keep learning.
Yeah, it's something that I have noticed that in the way that I'm just operating the business, is that before I was kind of just thrown into it, and I either had to learn how to swim or sink, and now that I wouldn't say I'm like Michael Phelps, but I'm starting to understand the different strokes, the difference in preparation, and it's going to take time if you're going to want to be like a Michael Phelps of whatever career you have.
One of the other things too is that, especially when you're a kid, usually you have that person to tell you, like, oh, you're doing it wrong, do it this way, or keep trying. Like yesterday, he wanted some pizza.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted me to go with him to get the pizza because
Yeah.
they were giving it out at a birthday party. And I said, no, you can take your plate and go over to the counter and ask for some pizza. And he was whining. I said, if you want it, you go get it. So he got up and he walked over and he stood there and he looked back at me because no one was helping him. And I said, ask. And so he's just like looking up And then all of a sudden, someone come over to him and he asked, "Can I have pizza?" And he got pizza, came back, and he was smiling. And then he did it another time. He did it 2 more times. And it's that part of me that was saying, "Hey, go over there and do it.
Yeah.
Like you can do this. You're fine." A lot of us lose that at a certain point. Like you don't have you have to do that to yourself, and it's so much harder. You can see that with a kid, you see that with an adult, and you lose that. So I think that's why a lot of people don't succeed in a lot of sense, because they don't have that backbone. They don't have that person to push them further.
Yeah.
Like I would have
I think
never taken that
that's a good
general
point.
manager job if it wasn't for his mom pushing me to do it.
That's a good point.
And so
Yeah, I remember we talked about that too. You're like, yeah, I don't know. You know, you were very indecisive.
yeah,
I'm like,
so,
just do it for the experience. And if it doesn't work out, you can take that experience elsewhere.
yeah,
And now you how long did you do it? 3 years?
did it for 2.
2 years,
And
man.
I mean, even people now think that I'm still
The GM.
the leader of the restaurant. Yeah. So
But you know the business and you know how it should operate.
yeah, you treat. It's like this experience that I had the other day with a guest who came in. He was a bus driver for one of the colleges, and one day he was driving, and he noticed that everyone was hungry because they were coming from somewhere far away, so they hadn't eaten all day, and he ended up calling the office because the person at the office was really good with like recommending places to go to eat and things like that, and the person. They were from Vietnam,
Mhm.
and so he was like, "Where's the Vietnamese food?" And they ended up finding somewhere, and he took them to go eat. Took them to go drop them off to get something to eat, which is not his job, and he's just take from point A to point B. And
Mhm.
so he took them to go eat, and then the next day when he comes to work, he's someone said like the boss wants to talk to you, and so he thought he was in trouble for going outside of what he was supposed to do. So he goes up and he said that the president of the school wants to have lunch with him that day. And so he went and he then became the manager of all of the bus drivers. So like he was in charge of, like now he's got this like crazy good job
Wow.
just because he took people out for lunch.
Because he did what
Because
you're
he-
supposed to do.
Yeah, just be nice and be accommodating and do the right thing essentially.
Yeah, you know,
And-
I think I've experienced that in a certain way myself, where I started as basically I was like just a driver, you know, and just the honesty and willingness to put in the work, I now manage all the properties, and it's like back when I was getting hired for being a driver. I didn't expect to be where I am today, but it wasn't overnight, and there was a lot of things I had to learn. But the same thing that happened to him, it might not have been overnight for me, but it's a big change. It's like someone out there, if you're putting in the work and you're doing things that you should, and then even going above and beyond, you're gonna get recognized sooner or later, and maybe even for you, like, how old are the owners?
I don't know, like 70 plus.
Like 70 plus. Do they have family? Like younger? So let's say that they don't even, they pass or something. And they come to you. They're like, Greg, we can't. You helped us for how many years? 15 years?
12ish.
12 years. If it weren't for you, our business would have not been sustainable. Thank you. We can't leave anything to you, but we can give you a letter of recommendation. Imagine just that alone. How many doors is it going to open for you? And then having the GM title, having the managing title behind it, you're going to get hired anywhere. Because not only did you gave 12 years of your life for that, but you improved their product in much better ways. Like right now, every morning I'm waking up and I'm looking at the post that you post on Instagram. I'm like, dude, I didn't know Greg can market it like this. It's actually really cool. And
You're talking about the work one.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Johnny Rebs.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, if I were the owner, I would take that into account. I'm like, man, like before Greg, we weren't even putting our name out there. And I'm sure, and like, I don't know how the interactions are going. Like, you can probably expand on that a little bit, but you can, like, if I was the owner, I would take that into consideration, and I would actually be almost dumbfounded because I don't know how to do it, and you figured it out, and then you're even doing it on your own will. Like, no one's telling you, hey, Greg, go put this post up.
It's the fight or flight, essentially. Like that's one of the things, especially with there, is that I noticed there's no invitation. There's no come over here. We're here for you. It's kind of just we're a restaurant and that's it. And so regardless if others aren't putting in the work, like there's plenty of people who are just like you're not really doing anything, but as long as I'm doing things, like that's all I can do. Like
Yeah.
I'm not in charge of everything else. So it's just like that story I said. You do the best work, like the bus driver dropped off the people at the restaurant, which was not their job. Like I'll do my job, do it the best, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and maybe that'll bring you some meaning in your life.
Yeah, because doing
by
the
doing
social
that.
media marketing essentially now gives me the opportunity to show what I've done before and what I can do in the future.
So I think if you guys can take anything away from this podcast and the bro science, it would be, serving other people will bring meaning to your life. At least that's what Greg and I find. Do something for someone else without expecting anything. Maybe that'll open doors for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's going to conclude today's episode of the podcast. I'm just going to read a little excerpt from Heart of the Buddha to end it. And as always, don't forget to comment. Don't forget to ask questions. We can try to answer your questions with our limited experience. Or we can, take a question and post it up somewhere and have other people asked or answer the questions rather.
Yep.
So actually, let's talk about the question because I feel like we sort of answered it, although we didn't read any answers from other people. In fact, when I put it on Quora, if you just go on Quora and type in, how do you bring meaning into your life? There's like 100+ answers on there. So it's a very popular question. I don't see why we should go over it on the podcast. If, just go on Quora and then see what everybody else posted on there. But next week, what do you think is a good question that, it also helps us guys if you guys post a question on the comments and then we can maybe even discuss that.
Yeah.
Because right now, what's something that's on your mind that you would want to ask the world in our next segment next week?
Let's see. I don't know. There's the Boy Scout motto is always be prepared. But how can you always be prepared if you don't know what's going to happen?
I can answer that. Why you should prepare for the unforeseen. You should prepare to be. You should prepare for failure. Prepare for failure.
That's one of the things that I always promoted in the restaurant was be prepared.
I think
or talk about the negative rather than the positive, because the positive speaks for itself.
Yeah.
Don't waste the time on the positive. Perfect the negative. Turn the negative into a positive, and then
there's another saying. It's like, don't practice by hitting the wood, like trying to cut a tree down, why don't you sharpen the blade so that it's faster and slices faster, you know? I forget how it goes exactly, but it's somewhere within those lines. And I'm just paraphrasing. Yeah, how about you guys put down a question that you guys would like us to discuss next week, and then we can go from there. And I think we'll just leave it at that. Okay. So, this kind of correlates to how to bring meaning to your life. It says, there is nothing more worthy than the virtue of selflessness. Selflessness unites people. It is a healing herb that unifies strangers and brings families together. It is the love for others that is higher than self-love. It is our only hope. And I feel like this is the way you make the world better.
Yeah, it's like the saying, the do unto others as others do. Or, no, it's not like that one. Well, I mean, in the sense, because
sort
if
of.
you're good to others,
People will generally be good to you.
Be good to you. I mean, there are bad things that happen, but you can't control that.
Yeah.
So as long as you're not spreading the same bad, it should get better.
Yep. Well, that concludes the podcast, guys. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe, ask questions. We're eager to answer some or even just talk about them.
You can check us out on Instagram at Thought Process Podcast. And then all the links to the other social media are on there and on the YouTube channel as well.
Thank you guys for joining us. We'll talk to you next week.
Have a good one.